Welcome back to the Ammo Podcast. Today, kind of want to hit on having time to hunt. Okay, it's a pretty common concern, I believe. I think anybody who absorbs any sort of media in the outdoor industry, they kind of look at these influencers and think, well, I could harvest deer like that if I had all the time in the world, or I could do this, or I could do that if I had the time. I just simply don't. And the reality is, like, even the biggest influencers that you see, they don't get to be in the woods 24/7. Now, they have a little bit of an advantage where, and I'm not going to say names, so I'm not going to bash anybody. And even if you ask who I'm talking about down below, I'm not going to tell you. But they do have an advantage where they can kind of pay their way, right? They can pay people to manage property, high fence hunting, blah, blah, blah. But regardless, they're not in the woods every single day. Okay. Now, pause. This is not a when is the time right conditions style of a podcast. This is not, we're not going to go into depth on like you should take off work on such and such days of November or anything of that nature. This is more of a all around becoming a better hunter, but more importantly, a better human. All right. So at Ammo, our first highest and priority number one belief is that God is Lord. Okay, I'm not going to come on here and preach to you guys. If anyone ever wants to discuss my faith with me, feel free. Leave me a comment, shoot me some DMs, whatever you want to do. But I'm never going to come and preach to you guys. However, my faith is very, very important to me, and that always takes precedence over anything, over hunting, over work, over my kids, anything. My God and my Creator, that's priority number one. And I want to preface the whole point of today's topic with that. So if you're like me and you have that same faith, make that your priority before anything. And if you're not like me and you don't have that same faith and you have questions, please feel free to reach out. I would love to talk to you guys about Jesus. But moving on, and I'm not brushing that under the rug, so don't take that any way. I just wanted to make it clear, that is priority one. So before anything else I talk about today, that is at the top of my my thought process. Okay, so the bread and butter of how we do this, right? If you watch my life strictly on the internet, you would think, man, this guy doesn't take care of anything. The man has no responsibilities. He all he's doing is he's out in the woods, or he's on his stupid little podcast or whatever it is. But the reality is that's the furthest thing from the truth. So they've been on the channel a couple times. They've been on, my other social platforms. I have 2 children, right? I am a dad. I have kids that I have to support and raise and teach and nurture and guide and everything that a dad is required to do. So it's not the barometric pressure hits a certain point and it's just, I'm good to go. No, if it's my time, my turn, I hate to say that, because it's a dual responsibility, obviously, but if it's my turn to watch the kids or my time with the children, I don't care. I don't care if there's a 200-inch whitetail cruising in front of the camera. Unless my kids want to go hunt them, we're not hunting, right? I don't care if there's a screaming gobbler off the back porch down in the wood line. If the kids don't want to go after them, we're not going after them. Now, my children are some turkey slayers, so they're going to be like, hey, Dad, let's go. But the reality is I'm a dad. I'm a dad before I'm a hunter, right? And obviously, if you're looking at my subscriber count, I'm not monetized on here. Now, I will say I am very, very fortunate in the fact that, I do have some sponsors, but they're not paying my bills. It's basically making it so that I have the supplies necessary to go do what I want to do. And I do work, with some great sponsors, and I'm very proud to be on their teams and on their staff. But the reality is, like, that's not paying the bills. So I still have a job, right? Like, I still, for anybody who doesn't know, I sell lumber. Like, that's what I do for my day job. I am an outside salesman for a lumber company here in the Western North Carolina area. And I have to work. I mean, my podcast room, like where we are filming this podcast right now, is 3 steps away from the actual desk that I work at for my job, which we're going to get back to that here in a moment. So I'm no different than you guys and gals. Like, I'm still just an average person. I'm not, I am not on the level of Michael Waddell. I am not up there with Cam Hanes. Like, this is not what I'm doing full time. Would I love to do it full time one day? Absolutely, I would. But the reality is even if I do it full time one day, it doesn't mean that I'm in the woods all the time, right? It doesn't mean that, in other words, a hunter is never going to have as much time in the woods as he wants to. Like, that is just the cold, hard, and sad truth of being an outdoorsman, is realizing that no matter what you do, right, you're not going to, like, if it's an obsession to you like it is to me, you're never going to have enough time out there. Plain and simple. It's just that's the reality of life, is you're never going to have enough time. However, I know this has been really depressing so far, right? However, here's the good news. You can set this up, and this being your life, to have more time, more valuable time, and more efficient time in the woods. Efficiency, I'm going to kind of like sweep under the rug. Again, this isn't a we're talking about when the barometric pressure hits. Well, this is more of your life as a whole. So going back to my job, and it took me a long time, and I want you guys to understand, like, if this is really what you want to do, like if you want to focus your energy and your time into hunting, there's going to be some years where that's kind of all it is. You're not going to go play golf. You're probably not going to go hang out with your buddies on the weekend unless it's in the deer woods or the turkey woods or wherever that might be. If it's hunting specifically, if you're not wanting to necessarily be a well-rounded outdoorsman, i.e., trapping, fishing, foraging, things of that nature. If you solely want to focus on hunting, and if you want to break that down even further, if you want to focus on one species and you want to get really good at it, and you want to have, Boone and Crockett class, let's say, deer on the wall every year, you're going to give up a lot of things for a long time before it all kind of meshes together and it molds together. So I was talking about my job and what I do, and for a long time, I was, so when I got out of the military, I went straight into the lumber industry, and it started, I was building doors in a door shop, in a door manufacturing shop, which is basically plant work. And I didn't do it for long, and it was miserable. I can't lie about it. But the reality is I knew that there was a bigger picture at the end of this, right? So I bid my time. I stayed in basically did factory work for 8 months, 8 to 10 hours a day, and built doors for 8 to 10 hours. Did the same thing on the same machine, 8 to 10 hours a day, 5 days a week, right? And then a driving position became available, which that actually helped things out quite a bit. I was actually delivering lumber, and that gave me the opportunity to get some road scouting in. I had actually tried making a video on it at one point in time, but I would, as I was driving from delivery to delivery, if I knew I was going past a particular piece of property that I hunted, it gave me an opportunity to see what I could see, basically, which was great. And then I kind of had to regress a little bit, and I ended up going into the management side. And fast forward, now I am where I am now, and I went back into the sales side, and I'm in outside sales. So that was a really long-winded way of getting to my point here. I have set my life up so basically I can control my own schedule, and I can hunt when I want to and work when I need to, and put the emphasis on the need to, right? Because none of us need to hunt. Like you might say you need to hunt, like I say I need it for my mental health and things of that nature. But the reality is none of us actually need to do this. There is no, survival requirement of you have to hunt or you're going to perish. That's just not the reality of what we're doing here. So work when I need to, hunt when I want to, and that's how I've set my life up. And basically, how I've done that is how my job works. Now, I get bashed on it a lot. I do end up working a lot from a tree stand, answering emails and text messages, figuring out problems, ordering material for my customers, so on and so forth. But hey, that you pros and cons, right? I balanced the reality is like I still have to pay my bills. So if, I've probably missed opportunities by being on my phone in the woods, but the fact is I got to be in the woods. And then, there's times where, like, say for instance, during turkey season, I can kind of sort of make my own schedule. I mean, I have obligations that I have to meet. And if I have meetings, obviously everything that I had planned gets canceled for hunting. But the reality is, I could basically hunt every morning during turkey season. And then as soon as, that good fly down talking is done, and that fly down action and they're starting to work hens, I can hop in the truck, go get some things done, come back around lunchtime, hunt for a couple hours, get back in the truck, get back and get some things done. That's how I've set it up. Now, the reality is it's exhausting, plain and simple. I'm nonstop. I'm go. It's woods work, sleep a little. And then, when it's time for me to be with my children, like I said, it's kids. So it could be like an hour-long hunt in the morning, 8 hours of work throughout the course of the day, and then the rest of the day I'm chasing the rugrats around, or a whole weekend of it, when my body's saying sleep, it's go be dad, go be dad, go be dad. So that is just an avenue that you can take to do it. Some other things that people do is, they work third shift. And that's also a pretty exhausting thing. Like if you've ever heard the name Zach Jacoby, the whitetail hustler, I know he's a third shifter, and it works perfect for him because he can hunt mornings, evenings, and sleep during the midday, and then work at night. So, and I'm not coming here. This podcast isn't to give you the answer, because I don't have the answer, because your life structure, your responsibilities, what you need to be making, what time constraints you have, that's all person to person to person. And I'm not the one who's going to tell you like, this is what you have to do to be able to do this, because it's different, right? Semper Gumby, always flexible. You have to be able to adapt to what it is that you are dealt with in life. And the reality is life isn't fair. So you got to learn to deal with the unfairness of it. But you can make it a beautiful thing. Like I said, you could do third shift. You could do 410s. Whatever it is, there are ways that you figure out how to do it. Here's the hardest part. Here's the secret. You have to understand it's exhausting no matter which avenue you go. If you want to spend as much time outdoors as possible, you have to understand that you're going to sacrifice some things. And one of those biggest things is sleep, which truthfully is not great for you. Sleep is an important thing for human beings. But the reality is, like, if this is what you want to do, you have to sacrifice some things, right? But do you? No. If you just want to be a weekend warrior and hunt on Saturdays with your old man or with your kids, or even if it's just by yourself, there's nothing wrong with that. And there's plenty of people who will take a buck or two every single year just hunting weekends. If you just hunt weekends and then take a week-long vacation or even a 3-day vacation during the season, there's nothing wrong with that. And that doesn't make you any less of a hunter. And don't ever let anyone say, oh, you're never going to be successful if you don't do this, right? Hunting is not a one-size-fits-all. We're going to put it in a cookie cutter and this is how you have to do it. That's not at all how any of this works. Okay. You will get what you put into it type deal. Like, you're not going to be someone like me who's harvesting, 5 or 6 deer throughout the country every year or more. You're not going to be someone like the hunting public who it's like every week somebody's knocking down a deer, obviously, because everyone's kind of got to bid their time. You got to do your research, figure out where the animal are, and so on and so forth. But the reality is that you do not have to be in the woods every day to be a hunter. You don't. You go one time, you're a hunter. If you go 2 times, 3 times, the entire season, you're a hunter. Just like the guy standing next to you who goes more or less than you. We tend to, like I was saying at the beginning, we tend to base things off of what we see on social media or media in general. And I know why. So this is an industry, as much as I hate to admit it, hunting is an industry. There's money involved. And where there's money involved, inevitably there's, lies, whether intentional or not. Because it's a sales market. Right? I'm a salesman. I understand how sales work. It's a sales market. And media, especially bigger media, YouTube isn't as bad for it. There's a lot of people on YouTube that, you can relate to. And I hope that maybe if you're watching me, I'm one of those things that you can relate to. But media as a whole, it kind of puts this like, hey, this standard is higher than yours. This is what perfection looks like. This is this guy or this gal that's on this TV show right now is so much better of a hunter than you because they go out to Kansas or Iowa or whatever and they knock down these 200-inch deer every year. And I'm not going to say names, but the reality is it's kind of their job, right? Whether it's for a actual TV program or they're an influencer through something like YouTube where they're trying to sell product. The reality is like they have to have this almost a holier than thou mentality. I know that most of them, that's not actually what they are trying to do, is have that, holier than thou mentality. But they have to be something that you aspire to be. There has to be this aspiration thing, right? Like you have to want it or you're not going to buy it, right? Like you're not going to look at a tree stand and go, man, that's a clunky piece of junk. Let me buy it. No, you want the next coolest thing. You're not going to look at, like if Matthews releases a bow this year that looks like something from the early 90s, you're probably not going to buy it, right? There has to be this like appeal. But don't get lost in that appeal. Don't think that because, Michael Waddell kills this caliber of deer and hunts this amount of days, like that's what I have to do. You don't. You absolutely don't. You have to be honest with yourself first and foremost. What do you want out of the outdoors? Do you want to pursue something like that where it's like literally your entire existence? And if you do, why aren't you chasing it? Why aren't you doing what I'm doing now and putting yourself out in front of people? This is a weird thing to do, right? Sitting in front of a microphone and telling you about my personal opinions and beliefs, that's a weird thing to do. But that's because this is what I want. I want to pursue it and to the point where, one day, and God love it, and if my boss is watching, I love that man to death, but one day I hope to be able to walk into his office and say, hey, my dreams are coming to reality. I have to step away from this job. That way I can do this full time. But if that's not you, if you are someone who just wants to enjoy the simplicity of it, then stop thinking that you have to be like Michael Waddell to be successful. Michael Waddell is a TV personality. He is a media personality. All the hunting public, all these big names that like you flip on your YouTube or your TV, that's all their life consists of, right? Imagine everything that you do on the day-to-day turns into hunting. It sounds really great until you actually break it down and understand that now this thing that you do on the weekend as a release from the stuff that stresses you out throughout the week is now your job. And it's the thing that stresses you out throughout the week. Right? So think about that. And maybe that's kind of the whole point of what I'm trying to say today is understand that if you want to be like your hunting heroes or your hunting idols, as much as I hate saying that word, if you want to be like them, there's the purity of what you've experienced, the whole love that you have that drove you there could potentially turn you against it. Right? Like, think about when you start a new job and how you're so excited and you love it. And then after about 4 years there, like, I'm not saying dread, but it's just like, back to the daily grind, right? Whereas if you're a weekend warrior hunter and you wake up on a Saturday morning and you know that, that's the only one of maybe 2 days that you're going to get to hunt that week, there's that excitement in the air. And it's just that, like, it's that feeling all the time. Every time you go hunting. I was thinking back to this year, because as I said, I have structured my life because I am chasing this as a dream. Like, I thought back to a couple weeks ago, 3 or 4 weeks ago now, about the frustration that I felt. And it wasn't like a frustration of, man, I keep getting beat. It was like a frustration of, I'm tired, I'm wore out, I have to keep going if I want to chase this. Like, carrying camera gear with me everywhere, and it gets exhausting. I love it. I am not complaining about it. I am not saying for 1 minute that I want to set this microphone down and stop being awkward in front of a camera. I'm not saying for 1 minute that I don't want to keep losing sleep, because this is my passion. This is my love. This is probably, as far as what I do, the most important thing to me on this planet. In other words, not being a dad, not being a Christian, not being a family man, like, work, golf, hobbies, fishing, anything like that. Well, fishing is part of it. Fishing is definitely a big part of what I do in the outdoors, but everything that I have mentioned beforehand, like, this is what I do. This is what drives me. This is what gives me purpose. This is what, again, I said I wasn't going to preach to you guys, but this is how I confess my, faith to you guys. And this is how I give my testimony to you guys is through this camera and through you guys watching and listening. And without it, I'm not me. But is that who you are? Is that who you want to be? If it is, go get it. Great. Awesome. But if I've been sitting here and you've been listening to me run my mouth for whatever crazy reason you might be doing that, if you are the kind of guy who's like, no, I just like to go out on the weekends with the buddies. I like to go hit a duck hole, on a Saturday morning with the boys. I like to go wet a line on Sundays after church, or whatever it is that you're doing. I don't want this to turn into a job. Then stop worrying about what big guys are doing. Stop thinking that you have to be at that level to be successful. And most importantly, stop comparing your trophies to theirs. I think, and I should have brought them up here to show you guys, but I'm thinking, like, even as someone who does this all the time, I understand that in different regions, different, areas, like, I have to change my expectations to where I am. Even as someone who does this all the time, the deer that I killed here in Western North Carolina, I would have let walk every single day in Eastern Kentucky. Just like the deer that I kill, in the mountains of South Carolina, I'm going to let walk here in Western North Carolina. That's kind of a broad spectrum way of saying, like, understand your season of life. Understand that where you are right now in your life isn't necessarily where you're going to be in 10 years from now. So if you only get to hunt one day a week right now, or even a year, even if you only get to hunt one day a year, that's not your forever. And even if it is your forever, so what? Enjoy it for what it is. Unless you want more, then you can go pursue it in the ways that I've mentioned already. But you don't have to be Michael Waddell. You don't, which I doubt anyone's aspiring to be Jordan Franklin, but you don't have to be Jordan Franklin. You don't have to be a guy who's sleeping 4 hours a night to go chase this crazy dream. You can be a guy that goes out on a Saturday morning and shoots a nice little 2-year-old buck or even a little, button head or whatever it is. And Jordan Franklin's going to be like, hey, you're an awesome hunter, because that's the truth to it right there. Is no matter what you do, whether you don't see anything but a squirrel, even if you don't see a squirrel, if all you see is the leaves blowing in the wind, you're an awesome hunter. And I want you guys to know that from the bottom of my heart. If you have spent any time in the woods, you are an awesome hunter. It doesn't matter what amount of time you're out there. Stop comparing yourself to anybody else. Hunt your own hunt. Enjoy your own hunt. Love what God has given us. And man, everything's going to be all right. Listen, I know that was just a rant. But I don't know. I was kind of thinking about that today, and I was like, I need to get in front of the camera and say this today. So if you have any questions on anything, please feel free to leave me a comment below. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe. If you watch this, I appreciate it. Mostly going to be for me to look back on in a couple years. But if you did watch this, like I said, hit that like button and subscribe. Lets me know that, hey, you guys like me running my mouth and listening to it. So, but until next time, I'll see you on the hill.